through this, we've done that in the school and academic improvements, the arts and athletics, the technology, and the safety and security. So each one of those 4 categories impacts every child at every campus. When we look at the main areas of improvement, these are where the big projects are. You can see the high schools with the closing of campuses, as well as 2 of the consolidations of the 2 of the elementary schools into a new structure. If you notice, the big portion of the bond is spent inside the loop, where LISD resides. And we touched on earlier, doing nothing would be easy. Being able to accomplish maintaining a facility that's 50 years old by not spending any money on it, unfortunately, is not a reality. If something's 50 years old, you're going to have opportunities to replace HVAC. You're going to have opportunities to replace plumbing. And we've got one instance where we've got a $700,000 plumbing problem. You can only fix those things so many times and patch those things so many times before you've got to take bold action and remove it or start over. And that's just, unfortunately, that's buildings, that's facilities. And so these are the big projects that we have. I think that we talked about the consolidation issue, and it's a hot topic. Some of the things we looked at for consolidation, and we really took a lot of the information and a lot of the lead from Park Hill, Smith & Cooper, the engineers and the architects, as well as Sodexo, around what facilities conditions were. They rated each one of the facilities, and they gave them what they called a facility condition index. It went through the useful life of all facilities, how old they were, cost to replace, and at what point replacing those HVACs or plumbing or whatever becomes cost prohibitive, and you need to just move on to a new facility. So we looked for schools that had high FC values, as well as schools that were in close proximity. We combined the amounts of deferred maintenance to figure out what the best combinations those would be. And then we did some projections to reflect the sustained student population and long-term growth. Because the reality is what we found in the combinations of the ones we're going to suggest, the statistics and the data shows us that the population will be stable in these areas, if not increasing in these areas. So when we go to the next slide, you can see of the proposed consolidations, deferred maintenance cost avoidance from the Murphy and Haynes consolidation is $3 million. To renovate Murphy's going to cost us $5 million. There's $8 million right there of a one-time savings. Murphy's a great school. I live across the street from it. I go in it every day. On the surface, it appears fine. It was number 1 or 2 on our facilities condition index. It's having the most problems. So that's a reality, unfortunately. Cost and savings operations by consolidating Murphy and Haynes annually is $1 million. So those are 2 right there. Now let's look at the next 2. The Isles-Wheatley deferred maintenance cost avoidance, $3.7 million. The renovations to Isles and Wheatley is $2.5 million at minimum costs, getting us to a one-time savings of $6.2 million. So you get the cost savings to operation costs by consolidating Isles and Wheatley is about $1.5 million a year in annual savings. So if we go to the bottom and just look at the big picture, proposed consolidations from the 2-school reduction is $2.5 million a year in annual savings. The closure of the Head Start centers, which we've already talked about, I think Dr. Garza touched on earlier, we're already going to realize a $2 million annual savings there, and bringing the total annual savings possible by this to $4.5 million. And when we talk about one-time expenditures versus annual savings, it's important to understand, like Dr. Garza touched on, the cup's full. There's no way for us to get any more money besides doing bold moves and creating these types of, and looking at the data. These are not easy choices. These are not choices anyone enjoys making. We talk about any type of change, but when the facilities become to a point where you really can't continue to upgrade them, you need to look at these alternatives. And I think it's very prudent for the board to consider this proposal, as well as for the community members that looked at the data. And when Park Hill, Smith & Cooper brought us the data, we did a lot of discussion and a lot of digging into the data. It's been an 8 or 9 month process, but the reality is, I think Dr. Garza said we meet weekly. Maybe some of the committee does, but for a lot of us, we meet daily, and the discussions are daily, and they're very in-depth discussions about what makes sense fiscally. Are we being fiscally responsible with the taxpayers' dollars? And so that allows us to get to a $4.5 million total tax saving or cost savings there. When you look at, and Dr. Garza touched on this a little bit too, 650 is not a supersized school. Lubbock Cooper, North Elementary 693, South 704, West 542. Friendship, you've got 8, 700, 600, 559 in their 5 elementaries. Roosevelt 550. 650 is not a supersized school. To us, 650 lets us utilize the resources within a school. I can tell you right now, if you ever had a kid at a school and the nurse is not there because she's splitting between 2 schools, that's not a good thing. The same thing goes for a principal or a speech pathologist or one of the other specialty service type aids that LISD provides. You get economies of scale when you have this size. I'm not a fan of a 750, 850, 900, 1,000 school. I think at some point you do outgrow and you can become too big, but 650 is a very workable school. We've got Waters Elementary, I think very close to that. It's an exemplary school, and we actually have a higher percentage of exemplary schools that are larger. And so it's important for us as we looked at, and in the committee's charges, we had to step back a lot and remember, because a lot of times we got really financial and we got really in-depth on the numbers. We had to step back and make sure the recommendations we were making were being made for the betterment of the learning environment. Run it long, right?
Yeah, we just want to, we've got a lot of great information, and we want to thank y'all for how detailed you've been. But we did want to give just a little bit of time for some
Sure.
questions.
Thank you.
Let you finish up, you got a couple more time.
You bet.
Okay, we're going to open it up to questions. So, yes, sir.
Ms. Garza, your chief financial officer, has your chief CFO told you what it will cost the taxpayers to pay this $198 million back? It looks like 2/3 of this $198 million will be financed for between 21 and 30 years. How much are the property owners going to have to pay to get you $198 million?
The current 19.5 cents that you're
Well,
being taxed right
in
now.
millions of dollars. Could you give me an idea? When we borrowed wanted $19 million, we had to pay back $30 million. Could you tell us how much the taxpayers are going to have to pay to get this
Look
$198
that
million?
up and answer that question in just a second.
I have just listening. How many of the people of the 185 who you're letting go through attrition are coming from administration?
Well, we actually monitor that for closely because that's difficult to manage when you're handling all your cuts through attrition. But it was concerning to us. So we cut at central office a little over 4% and at campus level about 5%. And by the way, that was done through looking at, we had a study done by Texas Association of School Boards that did a staffing study. So we just didn't go out and just cut every position that came open. We really looked at what that study indicated to us that we could lose without affecting teaching and learning. But it was really important for us to really operate as efficiently as possible. It was pretty close.
I also wondered about the AI building.
The AI building. That building is on the corner of our property, on 19th Street and Avenue Q. And I know that a lot of people have kind of questioned that decision. The district has been trying to purchase that property for over 30-something years because it essentially sets and encroaches on our property. And Mr. Ives is a great business, wonderful man, and his vehicles are always all over our property. And that's been a challenge for us. We've also been monitoring the number of accidents between Avenue 19th and 18th Street. There were over 400-something accidents there, but just between 2005 and 2008, I think. You cannot, when you leave the property, it's hard to see around because there are vehicles parked even on the sidewalks along that side. Now, we had a piece of property down Avenue Q that we sold that was deeded to us by Mrs. Talkington. We sold that piece of property for $750,000. So essentially what the Board of Trustees did is use that money, sold the property we did not use, and bought property that was of value to us. So essentially it was an attempt to protect our taxpayer investment there at our property. You got to answer that question.
Yes, that's including current debt. It's $580 million over 30 years. That's including current debt.
Including current debt, which is about
I'm just
$110
talking
million.
about, when you borrow this 198, what will have to be paid back? In other words, you will get 198 million to spend. How much will the money changers get for the interest on that 198?
I want to split out.
He didn't have it split out. He has the combined, the 110 plus the 198,
Let's have it factor in my thing.
because that's how we have to factor the payments. And it was 580 over 30 years.
So that's what we'll be getting the interest. That'll be a due date.
No, you want just the interest. We'll have to calculate
Yeah, I
that
think that's
for
on
you.
this 198.